all of this taught me one damning fact about schools. And I'm damning myself here, Richard, because I was a head of careers.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It taught me never make a teacher your head of careers. Because the teacher goes to school, they leave school, they go to big school, either university or whatever, they come back into school without any real industrial experience.
Mm-hmm.
So my experience there led me to the fact that I never, after myself, had a head of careers who was a teacher. Teachers were left to teach.
Mm-hmm.
Were my careers people were people with qualifications in ILM, level 4 or whatever, but they had real industrial experience.
Mm-hmm. So were they teachers employed by the school?
They were careers managers.
Okay, careers managers.
Yeah.
So does that happen across all schools then? Did schools do that same thing?
I don't think many schools, a lot of schools looked at it, and they looked at the cost of that. Now, the cost of that is easily buried in a big school. But if you look at the head of careers, particularly at St. Cecilia's, she's award-winning constantly.
Yeah.
Aisling Connolly is award-winning because she really understands careers, and there's an impartiality with her. She's not saying, like I would be saying to my students, well, why don't you take A-level politics? Because I'm teaching it, to make sure that I had a big class, where she was far more impartial. And plus she had the time. She hadn't somebody queuing to help her with a UCAS form who was going in to teach an A-level class and didn't really have the time to spend with them. So I think, yes, if I had the power, I would make sure that no school had a careers teacher. They'd have a careers manager. I think that would be an impartial way forward for all schools.
Yeah.
Because they'd understand the culture of your school, and the students, but also they would have time to give to careers.
But as you say, it's maybe in St. Cecilia's or Hazelwood, the resources are there to do that. How do you make that happen for a school with a couple of hundred pupils in it?
I've always found that there's a will, there's a way, and there is a way through collaborative efforts of working together, that you could share that member of staff.
Maybe the area learning communities or something
you could have
like
your
that.
early learning communities where that could work. When I started out as a head of careers, there was actually training in careers. And there was a big document launched at that stage by the Department of Education. Now we're talking mid-1990s here.
Okay.
Nothing has been produced since, and that qualification has disappeared. So you'll have somebody who's head of careers who just has space in their timetable.
So we're 30 years down the line. It's not that there hasn't been an improvement. There's been a decline because the qualification's not there. Like, you've done work in other countries. Like, how do they go about careers management, as you might say, within a school? What can we learn from other places about helping young people to make the right choices to transition to life beyond school?
I think what I've learned most is it would be a lot easier to do this in Northern Ireland, than it would be in the township in South Africa or in a favela in Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah.
But the will has to be there. And, you should never let money stand in the way of a good idea, because there are other ways to do it. If you think it's a really good idea to do, it doesn't cost that much to bring somebody in for a number of hours a week to actually do this. I suppose one area where I found that they invested hugely in careers was in Australia. Australia, because of its nature, there, different areas that do things differently. And Melbourne, I suppose, being a key champion, they decided that they would champion digital skills right across the Victorian schools. And I mean, that was obvious 20 years ago. It was obvious where students were coming to school with their iPad and their daybook. There was no books, there was no heavy bags, there was no nothing. If students were out in the bush, they were able to connect to school without actually being at school. We have a lot to learn from other countries. And I suppose prior to COVID, with a lack of finance, and since COVID, there's been almost like buttoning down the hatches here, where people are not opening themselves to actually visit other places,
Yeah.
not the finance to do.
Yeah.
So, I remember when I first became principal, there was about 4 different offers to me to, do you want to do an MBA in international leadership? Do you want to do, professional qualification in headship? Do you want to do this project, twinning your school with a school in America or Australia? They're not the same opportunities now, but they're still there. And I think what I see as schooling is a buttoning down of almost you're stuck in your region. We don't even collaborate with a school in, London or whatever. Like I remember flying all my maths department to a school in Bristol one day. The flights were £30 return. It was cheaper than getting training here because they were really good at maths. But I don't see enough of that happening anymore because principals are being asked at the minute to fill in a form about how they're doing. And then somebody else comes and they ask them to fill in a very similar form. And there's a lot of which they're doing, which needs to be filed in that big bin beside them because they're being asked to do too much management and too little leadership. But I don't think that's happening just in education. I think that's happening right across. There's a lack of leadership and a lack of emphasis on leadership where, what did you do with that £10 that I gave you yesterday? Can you fill in 4 forms for that? And we're seeing that maybe in areas, and if I transition to what's happening maybe in the Republic of Ireland in DEIS schools, there's more trust, and the accountability is on the fact of trusted accountability. It's not on filling in endless managerial forms. I think there's somewhat in education and elsewhere death by management.
It's a huge challenge, but who's setting the beat to all of this? Who do you think could be changing some of this?
There's a great saying that you should not be playing the instruments at the same time as conducting the orchestra. My favorite leadership quote, Richard. But I think it's not. We have some really good leadership. I mean, you have been in front of the Northern Ireland Assembly Committee recently on economy, or was it PAC? I'm not sure which.
Economy, yeah.
Economy. The Skills Council have as well. And with supposed my whole background in other areas of policy as well, in education, I am actually very pleased to see the grasp which our political parties have of what needs to be done. That's not something I was used to in previous committees. And I mean that it's unusual for somebody to praise a political class, but what needs to happen now is that needs to move out of parties to a collaborative effort forward. And the collaborative effort forward sometimes goes against the current style of government we have. And, we were left because of our political past with the type of government we have now, which sometimes stops us going forward together. Where people think, okay, I can't support you because you're in a different political party. I don't see that happening as much. And I have great hope for the political movement and political leadership. I would just like to see that far more assertive, but I think that will come because in my years of both teaching politics and being involved in policy, I can see a growing confidence, and I can see it happening. It's maybe not happening as fast as it should be, and I would like to see that pace happening. Because it's frustrating people like you. For example, they say when you get to Northern Ireland Economy Committee, oh, this is brilliant, Richard. What workplus is doing is fantastic. We need this replicated right across Northern Ireland. Well, then, find a way to do that. They need to find a way to do that. But they recognise what's good. So that's one of the first ways to go forward is to actually recognise that this is the way forward. And I
Yes,
think,
yeah.
unlike in the past, I think our politicians have found their voice, and they are growing confidence. Their ability is
Yeah.
brilliant, but they just need to go forward, and they need to go
Mhm.
forward together for the good of us all.